Week 3 of the fantasy football season is upon us. And with all the injuries that we've seen, these start-sit decisions are more important than ever. That's why we're here to give you some of the best starts and sits of the week.
It's about that time.
Stone on Sports.
How's it going, everybody? You are tuned in to Stoned on Sports Fantasy Football. My name is Matt. Really happy to be here with you today. Got the co-host Kyle here with me. And before we jump into things, there was news that come out today that Lions head coach Dan Campbell's got to sell his house because of some idiot fans out there. Got a hold of his address. Like, seriously, what the hell are you people doing? Leave the man alone. Leave his family alone. Don't show up at the crib. None of that shit. Like, at the end of the day, it's a game. Stop being psychos. Kyle, how the hell are you?
Great intro, man. Great intro, Matt. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame that people got to be dumb. So, all right. So we got some starts and sits for you for week 3. We got 4 starts and 4 sits. Maybe some we agree on, maybe some we don't. Time will only tell, right? First guy we got is running back DeAndre Smith. According to Matt, the week 3 matchup for DeAndre is good. Well, I think you might just want to hold your horses. Give me your take, Matt.
So if you look at it, how he's performed so far, 24 carries, 48 yards. He's not scored, which is never good for anyone, and just 1 first down. 6 targets, 4 receptions, 24 yards. 7 of his 24 carries have been for negative yardage. He's got just 1 rush over 10 yards. Guess what? I don't give a shit. The Colts have allowed 474 yards on the ground, 75 more than the next closest team. Surprisingly, their 5.1 yards per carry is only the fifth worst mark in the league, and they just put DeForest Buckner on IR.
They did.
And look, the Bears line has not been amazing this season. They've had some struggles on the interior. According to PFF, though, they're still around mid-pack and run blocking, and they're worse in pass pro. I don't think Swift has been or is as bad as the numbers have shown. The whole offense really needs a boost, and I think that this is where it's going to get started. Being here in Indy, you hear a lot about the Colts, and you know, a lot of my friends here are Colts fans, and I kind of pulse them like, hey, you know, what the hell do you think the issue is? And I get varying degrees of non-answers. I didn't think their defense would be this bad. They didn't think their defense would be this bad, yet here we are. I think Swift is finally going to have a decent game. I think them being able to run the ball is going to be able to take some pressure off of Caleb Williams. And watching Swift run, it seems like there at times is some hesitation at hitting the hole. You don't want that. You want to hit the hole. You want to explode through it. He is more than capable of doing that. Are you all right there, buddy?
I'm great. I love it.
You know, I think this is going to be a get-right game, at least for their running game there this week. Now, do I think he's going to be a top 5 option? No, but I think he can be a high-end RB2, back-end RB1 this week.
I think the biggest story here is that you got local friends in Indianapolis. I'm sure.
Yeah, I know. It's surprising, isn't it?
I know. Yeah, I'm leaning towards no, that, you know, the offense has definitely underwhelmed, to say the least, and it's really dragging everyone down. And the offensive line, as you mentioned, they really get most of the blame, especially on the interior. Swift has been stuffed on 37.5% of his carries. That's the highest among all starting running backs. And he has a negative 4 yards before contact. That means he has to run through contact just to get to the line of scrimmage. That is a problem. Now, the matchup on paper, sure. It looks good. But of out of 47 qualified rushers, QBs included, Swift's rush EPA of negative 11.1 ranks 43rd. I'm kind of worried we're seeing, you know, the same thing maybe Miles Sanders went through last year after he left the Philadelphia offensive line and left for Carolina, just like DeAndre Swift did in the offseason this year. They got him in the passing game, involved in the passing game a little bit last week, still failed to score 9 fantasy points. I have no interest in starting an injury-plagued running back on a very bad, struggling offense.
Yeah. Kelsey says Taylor Swift shouldn't be playing football. She's certainly shown enough during the game. She might as well put on some pads and get her ass out there.
Yeah. Yeah, she might as well. She can come over to my house afterwards if she
All
wants.
right. So we're going to just steer back towards football now. And during the offseason, there was a lot of speculation of, all right, who's going to get the most targets in Buffalo? A lot of people thought it was Dalton Kincaid. And then, you had people advocating for Khalil Shakir, or maybe it was Keon Coleman. You think Khalil Shakir is a good play this week?
I do. Leads the team in receptions, yards, and targets. Did the same thing in that blowout victory versus the Dolphins in week 2. And I think this weekend should be viewed as a solid wide receiver 3 versus the Jaguars. Why the Jaguars? They've allowed the 3rd most passing yards per game, and they have the 11th worst PFF coverage grade as a team. The run defense is pretty good, 11th best in rush yards allowed per game at 103 flat. I think that will probably force Buffalo to pass some more, which would be nice because we haven't really seen much passing from Buffalo. They've been more of a run-first team as they're just 20th in the league in pass yards per game. Some of that didn't help with the game script versus Miami. Last week. They just didn't have to pass that much. So far this season, Shakir, 8 targets, 8 receptions, 100% catch rate. Yes, please. I mean, it's not going to stand all year, of course, but I'll take it. Just shy of 100 yards and a touchdown. He's wide receiver 30 in PPR with 11.9 points per game. Out of the 68 wide receivers with at least 8 targets, he's got a 156.3 passer rating when targeted, tied for 3rd best in the NFL. 11th best PFF receiving grade, tied for 7th in route participation, 11th in yards per route run at just over 2.5. That's pretty nice. And tied for 19th in yak per receptions with 5 yards flat. Lines up in the slot almost about 3/4 of the time. Works a very short field so far this year. Has a low A dot of just 7 yards. Hell, Josh Allen's A dot is just 7.7. I think it makes sense to trust him here with him being the leader and all that matters there in receiving stats, given his role in the offense so far. This could be a high-scoring affair this week. Wide receiver 3 with upside for me.
Who in the hell is Khalil Shakir?
Okay, well, you could have fixed it while I did it.
I just noticed it.
God. Anyway, say your piece.
I think he's a decent option. Not dissimilar to the Kansas City backfield. I think it's going to be very difficult to try and figure out who is going to be the primary target any given week in that offense. I do think at the end of the day, by the time the season is done, it will end up being Dalton Kincaid, despite his slow start to the year. But losing Stephon Diggs, and I know the production wasn't there at the second half of the season, but they lost somebody who had a commanding presence, somebody who the defense always had to keep their eye on. Wade, why in the hell are you calling now? You know what I'm doing. I don't know. I think he's a perfectly fine dart throw. I think wide receiver 3 is probably about right, though.
Yeah, I agree. I still like it, though. We'll see. Hopefully I'm right. And on Sunday, I'll text you and go, see, I was right. Okay, next up, Zach Charbonnet looks to lead the backfield for Seattle in week 3. Kenneth Walker still not practicing this week as well. We both think he's an excellent start this week. What does Charbonnet offer in week 3?
That's a very good question. Let me get, it's already up there. The Dolphins' run defense, on the surface, they don't look bad, right? They're mid-pack in yards allowed with 236. They're mid-pack in yards per carry at 4.5. PFF has them as the highest graded rush defense, which I just don't see it. James Cook just tore their ass up, and they made Tank Bigsby look like a thing. So I don't see it. Seattle is a very good run blocking team. It's not looking like Ken Walker is going to be back this week. There were reports yesterday that he was feeling discomfort, going only at about 50% yesterday at practice. And look, Zach Charbonnet is not as good of a pure runner as Walker, but he's better out of the backfield. He had 33 receptions on 40 targets last year as a rookie. Not the most efficient dude either. He's averaged just 3.9 yards per carry for his career on 130 carries. But guess what? Volume is king. And last week, he led all running backs with a 95% snap share. Unlike DeAndre Swift, this man does not hesitate hitting the hole. He hits that shit with authority and bursts through. Now, doesn't mean he's going to go far beyond that. But at the same time, you don't really need him to when he's getting that kind of volume. He ran for 38 yards on 14 carries, and he scored last week against the Patriots. He also hauled in all 5 of his targets for 31 yards. With Tua out, I think that offense is really going to struggle to put points on the board. I think that Seattle should be able to, I don't want to say win this game easily, but I think they will not struggle to dominate in the trenches. I think their offensive line, by the time we get to the end of the game, will exude their influence. And I think that's when Charbonnet, after, a full game of just wearing them down, is really going to shine. I think he's going to end up, if the volume holds, I think he can be a top 10 running back this week.
Yeah, I think
with
so
a great
too.
chance to score.
I mean, definitely, I look at this as a positive game script for him in Seattle this week. James Cook gashed the Dolphins last week for over 7 a carry. Yeah, it's good. Now, if Walker ends up playing, he's the must-start option, but it just doesn't look like that. Don't feel like it either.
No, it don't.
Kelsey, that is from Silence of the Lambs. Bottle of Chianti with some fava beans.
I thought it was from Ace Ventura. Might have been in there too.
No, I think it was in Dumb and Dumber, but they stole it from.
I don't know. Some shit. Doesn't matter.
Silence of the Lambs.
Joe Burrow might be getting T. Higgins back this week. I think if you give him a full complement of weapons, especially going against that Washington secondary, which is they're just ass. They are ass. They are terrible. They have got to be one of the worst secondaries in the league. I think Joe Burrow is an amazing start this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so as well. Listen, the matchup is great. We saw Burrow week 1 looked, really bad. Couldn't hold a water bottle, whatever. But last week in Kansas City, looked great, even though the Bengals still lost there in a close one. He was 23 of 36, still hit 250 yards or over 250 and 2 touchdowns, scored 17.2 fantasy points. He's still one of the 8 QBs in the league that hasn't thrown an interception yet through 2 games. CJ Stroud, still 0. This guy's played a bunch of games and barely can throw an interception. Anyway, so he's got the Commanders. Since the start of last season, their defense is awful. They've allowed 18 plus points to quarterbacks 14 times, including 11 who have scored more than 20 points. Out of the 30 QBs who have taken at least 50% of their team's dropbacks, Burrow's 8th best PFF pass grade. That's nice. Yards per attempt of 6.5 ranks 23rd. Top 12 in adjusted completion percentage. Top 10 in big time throw rate. Big time throw, that's something PFF tracks. It's usually a pass, generally thrown further down the field, usually in a tight window that has excellent timing and location. He's good in it. Right now, his ADOT is pretty low for him, just 6.8 yards. Definitely look for that to improve with Higgins getting back and the offense, getting more in sync. And I'm not talking about Matt's favorite boy band either. Over the past few seasons, Zach Taylor, the coach there in Cincinnati, that team has really struggled to put together a passable offensive line. If you need a couple examples, Joe Burrow got placed on season-ending IR 2 out of 4 seasons. They're not trending in the super right direction. They've tied for 4th in most sacks allowed with 6. They're middle of the pack in pass and run blocking grades on PFF. While that may not seem, a very impressive number, I think it's a huge victory for Cincinnati, considering how poor this unit has really been over the last few years. and the way they stood up there against Kansas City with their very elite defensive front there. That being said, Burrow gets Washington. Defense through 2 games. They're the most total yards allowed, most pass yards allowed, and 6th worst rush yards allowed, 6th most rush yards allowed. Baker Mayfield and Daniel Jones, of all people. Well, Baker's good, of course. Daniel Jones sucks. Combined for 467 yards, 6 touchdowns, and no interceptions against the Commanders through week 1 and week 2. He's a top 5 quarterback. Burrow is all the way. No buts about it.
I agree wholeheartedly. And Cincinnati is always a team that seems to get off to a slow start. This year is no different. They're 0-2. This is a get right spot if there ever was one.
Yep. Heck yeah. So we'll talk about, we'll go from one quarterback that we like, and we'll talk about one quarterback that we think that you should sit. Sam Darnold has a tough matchup versus the Texans, albeit at home, but Houston's defense has allowed the 3rd least total yards through 2 weeks. Is he worth just starting in Sam Darnold just worth starting in 2 QB or super flex leagues, or is he a complete bench this week?
In 1 QB leagues, yes, I'm benching him if I've got a more reasonable option. I think he's fine for super flex or 2 QB leagues, but he is not going to finish as a QB1 this week. And he's looked good so far. You can't deny it. But he's going up against a defense that's allowing a 57% completion rate. They've also got the 2nd most sacks after getting to Caleb Williams 7 times last week. And that pass defense has more interceptions, 3, than touchdowns allowed, 2. And the pass rush is going to be a problem because he is tied for the highest time to throw in the NFL. And I get it. He's been very efficient. He's completing 72% of his passes. Something strange, though. He's 3rd in air yards, but just 10th in air yards per attempt. He's 9th overall in passing yards, but 3rd in yards per attempt. And Willie, the way to beat that defense is on the ground. They're still likely going to be without Addison. And while Jalen Naylor has been fine, he's more of a boomer bust deep threat. Again, I'm fine with him as a 2nd QB in super flex leagues. I think he's going to finish somewhere probably in that QB, we'll call it like 15 to 18 range. If you're counting on another big day from him, like you saw against the 49ers, I don't think it's going to be there. I think probably his ceiling this week, barring something just absolutely crazy, is maybe 225 and a touchdown. I think this has a good chance to be a lower scoring game. Houston is possibly looking at being without who's that dickhead running back they got? Joe Mixon. He's likely going to be out, so to be the Cam Akers show. Nico Collins is nursing an injury. Now it's looking like he's going to play, but is he going to be diminished? I saw Justin Jefferson come out today and said, I'm 100% going to play. That's fine. Is he going to be 100% though? There's not a whole lot behind him to lean on.
Addison's just not trending either to play right now.
Nope. So Darnold has been fine. This just isn't his week. In my opinion.
Dickhead Running Back. Is that the new show on Hulu? Yes. Yes, it is. On right before Only Murders in the Building. Good stuff.
So Pittsburgh, man, Najee Harris has gotten plenty of opportunities this year, but what's he done with it? Not a whole hell of a lot. No. Yeah, I think that's a good reason to sit his ass on your bench. What do you think, buddy?
Yeah, I have him on 2 leagues, I believe, and he's firmly on the bench. In fact, I didn't start him last week either. He's RB 30 in standard, worse, of course, in PPR 33. Through the first 2 weeks, he's got 17 plus touches per game, but has yet to score 9 fantasy points this season. Total of 139 rushing yards on 37 attempts through 2 games. That's a lousy 3.8 yards per attempt. growths. Truth is, in real football, he's done a decent job kind of pacing that Steelers offense. It just doesn't translate into good fantasy performance. He's seen minimal involvement as a receiver with just 3 total targets. Through 2 weeks, he has just a 19.6 route participation rate. Last season, his route participation wasn't very high either, but it was still over 30%. It's definitely Jaylen Warren's show now in the receiving game. I think Harris remains the preferred option. He's seeing more carries. We know Harris is the running back the Steelers are going to use to grind out the clock when leading. I'm just not sure they're going to be in that position this week against the Chargers. They've allowed the 2nd lowest rush EPA to running backs and the 6th least rushing yards per game through 2 weeks, averaging 80.5 yards. You're splitting the snaps there with their running backs there, not to mention the running back that plays quarterback. And Najee was out-snapped last week by Warren. Anyway, he's touchdown-dependent option right now only. Given all that floor, I would avoid Harris in week 3.
I will too, because I don't have him rostered anywhere. I don't even think he's a good play in DFS where, that's someplace you want to differentiate. That's just being dumb.
No, I don't. What Steeler would you even use except for Fields, maybe, in DFS? Maybe Pickens if Surtain or somebody's not on him, but because he was completely shut down last week.
He was, but it wasn't as bad as it seemed. He had a couple catches called back because of penalties. So we'll see what happens.
Matt, Seattle is a tough place to play on the road for anyone, let alone someone like Skylar Thompson. Why else is Jaylen Waddle a sit for you this week?
Skylar is such a weird name for a guy. I hear that, and I always think of
Skylar White.
Makes me think of Skylar White, but just isn't Dallas's niece? Her name's Skylar too, right?
Yep, exactly. And it's spelled with the AR like Mr. Thompson's is. I guess it's a unisex name, but I'm not feeling it.
No, Jaylen Waddle. Look, no, Tua being out really downgrades this passing game. With Skylar Thompson in, Jaylen Waddle in 3 full games has averaged 5 targets, 3 grabs, 37 yards. And quite frankly, I have a hard time seeing much more production than that. I think they're going to lean on the running game to try and hide Thompson as much as they can. And Seattle is the highest PFF ranked coverage team in the game. They put Tua on IR. It's going to be a struggle for the next 4 games, though the schedule does let up a bit in terms of pass coverage. This week, I think, when they do throw the ball, Skylar Thompson's going to look to get it to Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill is the alpha there. He'd be the alpha on pretty much any team he was on. And Jaylen Waddle is a damn good second option, but Skylar Thompson is just not the kind of quarterback who is going to support multiple fantasy viable options in the passing game. Honestly, I don't even think he ends up as a wide receiver 3 this week. If you're in a deeper league, or if you're in a league that starts, 3 wide receivers, maybe you can look at him as a flex. I don't think he even gets to 10 PPR points this week, which is pretty damn sad, just given his level of talent. Now, Mike McDaniel, hell of a coach, right? And I'm sure over the course of time, he's done the best he could to coach up Skylar Thompson, but we saw him in that playoff game, 2 years ago against Buffalo, where he did jack shit, along with the other 2 games that he started, absolutely jack shit. I think we're going to see a repeat performance of this. We just talked about Charbonnet earlier. I expect Seattle to win this game. I mean, I'm not going to see, I'm not saying it's going to be a blowout or anything like that, but Seattle should be able to impose their will on him. Now, who knows what the hell is going to happen, right? In garbage time, anything can happen. Maybe Waddle gets lucky. Maybe he catches a slat and breaks one. It's certainly possible.
Absolutely.
But to count on that is ridiculous. No, absolutely not. If I have Jaylen Waddle, I'm sitting him. As painful as that thought is, I think it's the right thing to do.
It is. I'm doing the same thing. I roster him in a league, and I'm not going to start him this week. He was in a flex, so I'm doing something else there crazy, but not Waddle. Definitely not Waddle. There's Mike McDaniel, Mike Mick. There's Mike McDonald. There's Mike McCarthy. A lot of Mikes with Irish last names.
Yes. We got another Twitter handle here from Kelsey. Sitting his ass down. She's on a roll today, folks. She is on a roll today. So we got one more receiver.
Fire up the chat with some politics. No politics. Politics free zone.
So we've got a receiver who has shit the bed so far this season. Just
shit it. Just
thoroughly. It's everywhere. And really that whole offense has just looked wrong. I think Press Taylor is a garbage OC. I'm not a big fan of Doug Peterson. I'm just not. I think they'll both be gone after this season. Evan Ingram was out surprisingly last week, and you would have thought, hey, all right, Christian Kirk is going to get fed. Guess what? He didn't. His ass went to bed hungry and then shit it. Kyle, what do you think he's going to do this week?
The dude is it's a full sit. I'm rostering him in a league. I'm sitting him. He's wide receiver 97 in PPR. Just pitiful. Washington has a wide receiver named Olamide Zacchaeus. He's wide receiver 88. Yeah. Nobody knows who the hell that guy is. No. So you drafted him. Kirk was being drafted there in draft season, wide receiver 33, about 61-ish overall. You're likely pissed, just like I am. 2 games, 7 targets, 2 receptions, net of 29 yards. I say net because he had -1 fucking yard last week. Just disgusting. For a guy that's seen 218 targets and had just short of 1,900 yards the last 2 in Jacksonville, it's unexcusable. For some reason, T-Law prefers to throw to Gabe Davis, and BTJ just made that up now. Brian Thomas Jr. I don't know. Maybe it's already a thing. Many people are saying it. And even tight end Brenton Strange is seeing a bunch of targets. A dude with a career 8 receptions who just 3 years ago couldn't even legally drink alcohol. Yes, I realize Ingram was out. I'm proving a point here. I don't even remember what it was. Oh, yeah. It's literally inconceivable that Kirk was uninvolved with Ingram out. It makes no effing sense at all. I don't get it. He's going to come back, though. But it's a bad matchup this week against a Buffalo defense that just held Tyreek Hill and Waddle to a combined 15.1 points last week. They picked off 2 or 3 times before he banged his head on that one guy that died on the field a couple years ago. What's his name? Darvin Ham? No.
Yeah. No. DeMar Hamlin. Darvin Ham used to play for the Pistons.
Pistons, yeah, he's a basketball. And his mother was the mayor of Saginaw, Michigan for many years. Anyway, I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a rough day. That's just going to make Kirk more invisible than he already has been, really. Buffalo defense, 10th best pass yards allowed. Their pass rush is damn good. They have a 4th best PFF pass rush grade. Matt, number 1, our Lions, baby.
Hell yes.
Our Lions. Love it. On an individual level, Buffalo has 3 of the top 30 defensive players in PFF pass rush grade. Greg Rousseau, Von Miller, and Daquan Jones. Number 1 defensive player in pass rush grade, Matt? None other than Aiden Hutchinson. I know I'm supposed to be talking about Christian Kirk here, but we do what we want. It's our fucking show, right?
I think so.
The number 1 player in pass rush win rate, I said that perfectly. I didn't F it up. And it's not even close, is Aiden Hutchinson, Matt. 41% of the time he wins. Next closest is Trey Hendrickson, edge for the Bengals at 29%. So, all right, back to Kirk. It would not be a surprise to me, nor Matt, to see Kirk bounce back at some point this season. Just not week 3. Probably not next week, week 4 versus Houston. But week 5 looks excellent versus the Colts. Unless you're desperate, you need to sit Kirk this weekend, period.
So at what point do we just say, like, Trevor Lawrence just ain't him?
I think we probably, this year will be the last year to really go, okay, Last year he dealt with a lot of injuries, played through some admirably, but definitely wasn't the same as he looked a couple seasons ago. But this has got to be the last year. And I know we've talked about Doug Peterson there, the offensive coordinator. I can't remember his name, but he's horrendous.
Press Taylor.
Yeah, Press Taylor. Just horrible. They need to make a change there, I think. Doug Peterson, if he doesn't, he's going to be finding himself with a pink slip on his office door.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I think so too. Which game are you looking forward to the most this weekend? That's not the Lions game.
That's not the Lions. Hold on, I'm actually pulling up the schedule right now because I was like, oh, we should yap about some games for a minute. I took no notes or anything. I just kind of did whatever. But let's see.
No notes, Kyle.
No notes, Kyle. What was the one? Baltimore, Dallas could be good. What other one did I like? Philadelphia, New Orleans is interesting. I'm interested to see if New Orleans can keep up what they've been doing miraculously. I think they got a good spot to do it again against the Eagles, especially their secondary, still not good or whole. Yeah, there's not much. Kansas City, Atlanta. It's about it, man.
You know,
I mean, the Raiders should stop Carolina. I think most people are streaming any streamer or defenses that managers like to do that. I think everybody's just trying to grab whoever's playing Carolina, which is not a bad strategy to take. I've taken it in a league or two.
Yeah, Kelsey is getting impatient. She's looking forward to the Chargers game. I think if you are a fan of two teams who are just going to strap on the leather helmets and play some 1950s style football and just beat the shit out of each other, you're going to love that game.
That'll be the right game to watch for sure. Yep. That'll be not a lot of passing, a lot of ground game, heavy on the defense, you're exactly right. It's not a game that you're going to want to use probably for DFS that much. Heck, a Charger or two, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, they're the running backs there. I think it'd be good plays. J.K. Dobbins has shown this year that, while he's lost a little bit of a step, he can still burst through the hole and find pay dirt. We're looking for Gus Edwards to do something. He's just kind of a plotter at this point, and I almost wonder, at what point are they going to get Kamani Vidal involved?
Yeah.
You talked about Najee Harris earlier. I think Jaylen Warren is actually a pretty good play this week. And Justin Fields, while, you don't really want to trust him throwing the ball all that often, his legs make him so dangerous.
So you're a manager and you have, but you brought up Warren. You have a choice between him or Cam Akers this weekend.
I'm going to take Warren. I think Cam Akers will likely get more work. I think even though Warren just isn't going to get that same kind of workload, he is so much more efficient when he does get the ball.
Yeah. Kelsey says she might fly to Pittsburgh. I really actually love Pittsburgh. It's an old Rust Belt, steel town, whatever, but it is kind of beautiful with all the buildings, the sports stadiums. Are right there along the river where all those meet. I can't remember the names. The Ohio's got to be one of them. I think two rivers empty into the Ohio. I don't remember the names.
The Allegheny and something else.
Yeah, but it's actually kind of beautiful around there. Kind of nice. Not so shitty. Captain Spock. My mom would crunch up potato chips and use them atop a tuna casserole. It's actually pretty good. Yep, I've had that before. Are we talking about hot dish? Was Dubo talking about hot dish?
No, we were talking about putting chips on a sandwich for that little bit of crunch.
Excellent. Always. It's got to be plain Lay's, though. If it ain't plain Lay's, forget about it. My favorite.
Have you ever had all dressed chips?
All dressed in zesty mordant?
So
Both
all
ones?
dressed is the most popular flavor in Canada, and it's a combination of barbecue and salt and vinegar. It's actually not too bad.
Heck yeah.
I don't mind them in small doses.
Hot dish casserole. And it's so great because you can just interchange the meat. You could take the tuna out, put in chicken, put in burger, put in ground turkey.
Sure.
Whatever you want. I'm hungry, by the way. It's 8:35. Haven't ate dinner yet.
Yeah,
Kelsey
Kelsey,
loves
if you go
salt
to
vinegar.
Pittsburgh, make sure you get some scrapple. It's
Yep. Some scrapple.
I don't.
I tried it
really
when
know
I
how
was
to
there for breakfast.
Did you?
Yeah, it was all right. I just kind of mixed it all in with my eggs and shit anyway and had it on toast. It's all the same. It's all good stuff.
Nice.
All right, let's get the heck out of here.
Got it.
Starts and sits. Any questions you guys got on the replay? Ask them in the comments. We monitor that. We will help you out with those questions for you. We will be back Sunday, 12 noon Eastern, for our start and sit show, last minute show called Tinker Time that we do. We'll take all your questions, last minute roster management questions, trades, waivers, anything you got. We will answer all the questions. Even, we'll talk about injuries that could be coming up because the inactives will come out at 11:30 right before we come on the air. Any weather issues. If we get bored, we might do a daily fantasy sports lineup for you all to follow. It's a lot of fun. Yes, stinker time. That's what we're going to call it now. Thanks, Kelsey. Thanks, everybody else that got in the chat. Dubo, Captain Spock, Cloud Boy, anybody else I missed. Have a great evening. Stay stoned.